Welcome to Graham Kerr's Kitchen. It's really two programs in one. This is a series that appeals to your creative side. Food that is sumptuous stuff. How could that be? This is a program about people who want to eat healthy and reduce calories. Actually, it's about food with an aromatic quality that fills the nose. Oh, sure. But it's also about keeping my arteries clean by reducing fat. But it doesn't mean a thing if the food isn't rich and colorful. Maximize the flavor. Okay, but I must have healthy food that I can cook in minutes. I must minimize the risk. So welcome to Graham Kerr's Kitchen, where we get our heads together just for you. Welcome back once again, and you got it again. This is another dessert program, and you know what I'm like when it comes to desserts. I've got pots and pans and things everywhere. 2 dishes, all right? This is not just both sides of the head. This is also 2 dishes as well. This time using milk. I don't know whether you're like me, but you see, milk puddings sort of have a way of coming up in my mind, of saying things like, oh, you're sick, and sort of thing. But I think we could have milk puddings which are wonderful and made from scratch. This is an Indian pudding. And here we're going to throw some crannies or craisins or whatever they call them, dried cranberries, you know, over the top. We've got a yogurt sauce with maple syrup in it. And with that streaks of maple just running round into that sauce there. We're going to have hazelnuts thrown in. I hope you like hazelnuts. They're wonderful, called filberts as well. And those are going to stud it. It'll be basically a cornmeal, almost like a sweetened polenta, which will be underneath it. So that's rather fun. And at the same time, going to do, well, I know it's something like, you know, well, I just nick down the aisle where the Jell-O is and things like this, and I pick up one of those packages of stuff and whip it all up, and it's done in a flash, and that's a custard, isn't it? Yes, but then there's the other custard as well, where you make the zest of the orange and do it. Well, enough of the chat. Come through and I'll show you how it's done. Right, now, there's a whole difference between food which is made with 2% milk and 1% skim, and we'll get into that a little later on when we visit the supermarket. But first of all, look at this thing here. Now, I'm sure that one day somebody was making a can of something and just took the whole top of the tin off, and it just dropped down into the milk pot, and then they discovered this slightly bent thing put down in the bottom when you're using milk would stop the milk from boiling over. Now, it really does work, and the bubbles are collected and just come out the side that little bit. And for what exact, scientific reason, I don't know, but it just works. Now, if you don't have one of those, just put a wooden spoon over the top, and then when it boils up, you'll see it. It'll arrest it in just enough time for you to get at it before it goes all over the stove. Hopefully. We'll see whether it works. Okay, put that on. Now, I've got here some pieces of orange zest. I'll show you how this is done in a second. But it's the zest of half a large orange. And I bruised it slightly, jumped up and down. Well, I didn't jump up and down. I just bruised it with the back of a knife and popped that in. Now, that's where you make an extraction of the real flavor of fruit, rather than putting it into some sort of odd bottle from someplace or other. Now, you do this by simply taking a potato peeler and just peel back the outside skin of the orange, having well washed the orange first. Nowadays, I'm awfully sorry to tell you, but they spray things, all kind of stuff, and I prefer not to have this. I wash it really thoroughly and then just drop it in. Okay, bruise it first. Now, we'll let that simmer for a while, just come up to the heat and let those natural oils just burst into it and do well. Okay, now, 5 cups of non-fat milk are in here. Now, this is in one of these double boilers. This is an absolutely indispensable thing to have in a cookware line. The water's just boiling underneath it. It means I'm not going to scorch it, and this is non-fat milk. And non-fat milk, if you've ever had an experience with this, seems to fall, the proteins fall to the bottom, unaided by fat in any way, and they catch and they bake on the bottom, and it's really murder. So this I didn't want to have happen. So this is all there now. That's just nicely heated up. And into the top goes polenta, or cornmeal. Now, 2 kinds of cornmeal that you can have. You saw me with polenta the other day, you'll know this. this is well, it used to be called water ground, and they'd get a stone and they'd flush water through it, and they'd grind up the dried corn into gritty pieces. You can see how gritty that is. Now, this is the rough one, and it's got some of the germ of the corn still in it. Very nutritious, but it can go off quite quickly. This one, however, is very finely powdered, and this one is one I'll use. It doesn't have the same color or nutrition, but it just combines beautifully and does a good job, and you'll probably be more successful with it. I am, anyway. So, when it's nice and hot, you then take this half cup of powdered cornmeal, like this, a finely ground cornmeal, drop it into the top, and whisk it all the while. Now, you have to be careful with the whisking process here, because, truly, it must not go off the boil. There's just, would you just make one note of this if you're actually making notes at the moment? It's 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons full, okay? Just 2 tablespoons full. Sorry, half a cup plus 2 tablespoons. But it's good fun anyway. And so, whip that until it starts to thicken. Now, this is the stage that it will come to when it's thickened. Look at that. It takes about 2 to 4 minutes of just standing over it, and over that hot, just beat it like that, and you see, it's lovely. It's almost just like a custard, like the other thing that we're going to be making in a moment. All right, cornmeal. Now, into the top of the cornmeal, a few ingredients. One is half a cup, with no extra 2 tablespoons, of sweet corn. And just pop that into the top there. And half a cup of maple syrup, okay? So we'll pour that maple syrup into that. Can you imagine? That's pure maple syrup, drizzled in. And when I was doing this earlier, it was a sort of, and it went through the friends of mine who make this program with me. Then there's some hazelnuts. Now, these hazelnuts, these little lumpy things like this, you might have seen these around. These are also called filberts, and they're grown in the Northwest, in Oregon and Washington. And, of course, throughout Europe, they've been growing for years. And here we've got a quarter of a cup of filberts, and they're bitter. They're quite a bitter substance. And there are some authorities say take the brown shell off the top. Well, don't worry about taking the brown shell off the top. I need the bitterness and the roughness of this dish. I need that to work together. Okay, now switch it on, processor, and be careful about this. Don't overdo this. Stop about now. And you say, well, how long is that, Graham? Well, look at what it looks like. See what it looks like? Little bits that would float. These are called floaters at that side, and they're just great. They'll give texture to this and probably do a bit of floating in it. But it just stirred in, and just imagine that combination now. The maple syrup mingling with that, with the nuts, with the hazelnuts as well. And now just a bit of spicing. Now, allspice goes well. And I don't know how spicy you are, but I'd like to creep up on things. This is a quarter teaspoonful. Now try it. You could actually whip it all in, take a little teaspoonful and touch it, and if you want, just add just a little bit more. Creep up on it, just like you would use if you're a lady, and you're using perfume, and you don't want to sock the guy right between the eyes with the perfume. In this particular case, just creep into the food with that. See how that allspice is broken, write it down into it. Perfect. There. Now, matter of fact, just let me just take a little of my own medicine. Oh, there's some zest missing. Oh. Lemon, just do this. My old man's a dustman, he wears a dustman's hat. And you just keep on shaving off the outside of the lemon, having washed it first, and you will find a whole tablespoonful of lemon zest. Oh, there's something we're missing. And pop that in, retrieve your wooden spoon from the sink, and stir it all up. Great. This is just delicious. It really is wonderful. If you have a very sweet tooth, you may say to yourself, a little more maple syrup. Watch the calories, but that's really good. Now, this is what happens next. You grease one of these things like a meatloaf can, a meatloaf tin, and just a little grease around the outside. And this is a little margarine that I put there, polyunsaturated, and pour that in carefully, and it should just fill the top. And put that in another larger container, like a baking dish. You don't have to have all glass and this sort of thing, but it works nicely just to show you what it looks like. Now, heat the oven up to 300 degrees Fahrenheit, which just is conveniently for once 150 degrees centigrade. Pull the wrung out, put this on, and this works for anything where you're going to do a dish which has got, let's call them bain-marie, you know, Mary's bath. Nobody really knows whose Mary is, but it's a great idea. Because if this went in all on its own, it could catch. Because this takes 2.5 hours to cook. I know that sounds like a long time, but imagine if you're going to make this a companion dessert at the same time that you're actually doing a turkey or something, you know, that takes a long time. Put that on, put them in together, and you make use of it, you know. It's good. Or you could make it in one of those smaller toaster ovens, and it'll do it just as well. All right, look at this. Oh, look down here just for a moment. See that milk is boiling, but it isn't boiling over because of that little thing at the bottom. Isn't that fun? I put that on the top just for insurance. Right, I brought out the one which is done and cooled it on a rack. And just want to sort of bring this across. You can serve this hot or cold. It's a lot easier to serve when it's cold. And just start to peel this back. Now, look, whilst I'm just doing this one, I'll tell you what, let's go to the supermarket and let's find out how much, what this whole business is, 1% or 2% or whole milk and all that, how much fat really is in it, because this is kind of interesting. Over to you. Thanks, Graham. Okay, well, here it is. This it is. It trumpets itself from the top, dairy, and we love it. I mean, nobody wants to put the cow in a zoo, so what do we do about it? And especially if you're, you know, looking after the fat side of it. Well, non-fat is something that you could use if you get into it. It's a startling leap if you're into full milk and then into non-fat. Looks a little blue, chalky, and things like that. You would be surprised after a little while you can make it. But 1% is probably the one to go for if you want to be able to drink a little bit more milk and not have quite so much fat. It's got more refraction of light in it, and I like that. 2% is rather fun for those people that have coffee instead of using full cream or cream, and a little darker. That's going the right way. Whole milk. Frankly, after you've tried any of these for just a little while and you get back to whole milk again, even in the middle of the night with a slice of chocolate cake, you know, this could be it feels just almost too much for reasons which I'll show you in just a moment. Here's the half and half and the whipping cream. It's all together, but let me show you. Okay, these are the fat contents, and I need to get down here with you to be able to show it. This is an actual cup of milk, 8 ounces, and you probably might say to me, Graham, when I get up in the middle of the night, I have more than that, and I'm sure that's probably true. But this is the measurement of 8 ounces, and I wanted to show you bit by bit. This is the 1%. Obviously, non-fat milk has no fat. This is the amount of fat that you get in 1% milk. And that's the reason why it's pleasant, and it's got just enough of a feel to it to be attractive. Here's the 2%, which is almost twice as much. And if you look at that, you can see how that would sort of gloss around and could do a good job in coffee. Now, here is the one. This is the whole milk. And you can see perhaps the reason here between the 1% and the whole. You see the difference in the mouthfeel that you'd get from that? But it is possible. It really is possible and enjoyable. I wonder whether you've ever got round to drinking half and half. Some young people I know do that. But this is sometimes put on cereal in quite large quantities. You need to know how much you're putting on. Say if you put on a quarter of a cup, you'd have half of that in this test tube of fat in that. And that turns cereal into something of a threat for some people. All right, let's forget the half cup measure and let's look at a tablespoon. 1 tablespoonful measure. All right, this is the amount that there is in whipping cream in 1 tablespoonful. And in double cream, which is called for in some nifty recipes nowadays, and I used to call for them in the past, that is in a tablespoon measure. Well, it's getting right up there. There's not much left apart from fat in that. Perhaps a little too much. All right, now, Graham, use the lesser fat one, and I'll try and struggle to my feet whilst you're doing it. wasn't that fascinating? No, just to see it like that, next time you have milk in the middle of the night, this thing, oh, I don't think so. Don't ever be bruised by things like that. Just sort of absorb it, and it'll come back just when you need it. Okay, this comes off just as one piece, and I think it's a cook's treasure. It's got little hazelnuts to it, it's got maple syrup in it, and it's like this, but it doesn't look too good when you serve it. So what you do is you just simply take a plate, and always when you're unmolding something, run a knife around it just to check that the loosening thing did actually take place. Make sure of that. And then put this up. I think you should let it set until it goes cold, frankly. And it'll fall away on its own, ba-da, like this, and you think, oh, that doesn't look too good. Don't worry, it'll look wonderful. And I'll serve that up in a moment or two and show you how it can be made to look terrific. All right, 6 tablespoonfuls of brown sugar goes into the top of, because it's really quite a sweet dessert, of that orange peel and, of course, the 2% milk which has been going here. I could never have allowed 2% milk to stay in this. Frankly, it would have scorched and been a terrible mess by that time. Now, there goes the little lid that comes out of there too. And that strains out of it the orange peel, and now it's just perfectly straightforward. Now, I need to bring that to the boil carefully now because I haven't got any to save it from going over the stage, and that needs to come up to a heat when that can actually be thickened. Okay, now, let's look at the yogurt. I've got here 1 cup of yogurt, and this is strained yogurt. You know, you put it in the fridge and allow it to strain in one of those little sieves, and it just drips through, and after about 8 hours, it's nice and dense and wonderful, and that's non-fat yogurt that I use. And to this, I want to add 2, or a quarter of a cup, if you like, 2 tablespoonsful of maple syrup and 2 tablespoonsful of hazelnuts, just exactly the same way ground up like they were before. And then, here's a spoon, and just stir that in together. That's going to become the kind of dessert cream that's going to go on. Now, throw into that, just for fun, a few of these crannies or craisins. Everybody's coming up with a new name. It's a bit just dried cranberries. How about we call them dried cranberries? Put a few in there as well as they're going to go over the top. All right, now in here we've got 3 tablespoons full of arrowroot and 1 full teaspoonful of vanilla. My name is Graham Victor Kerr. Bet you never knew Victor was in the middle of that. Just checking to see who I am. I've been getting my measurements wrong today. Okay, just put on here 1/2 cup of milk and stir that combination together. Just mix it all up together. And this milk is just coming up to the boil here now. Make sure that you've got every part of that arrowroot fixed. Take this away from the heat, pour in the arrowroot and begin to stir that together, and that will come to a lovely glossy, oh, that does taste good. That orange has really picked up nicely. And then, whilst it's just thickening up here, you take 6 ounces, 1 cup, 1 cup of egg substitute. And if you don't have egg substitute, then you'd put egg white in here and put that through and stir it all together. It's thickening up absolutely beautifully. And what you would do then is just pour that after it has thickened up nicely. Put a teaspoonful in the top to make sure you don't. Look. You could serve that hot and put the teaspoon in so you don't break the glass, and just shake that little bit of orange zest on the outside. So that's one dish. And then these can be cut nice thin slices of this. It actually slices very well. Look at the beautiful chunks of sweet corn there. Lay that out. And then, where have you gone? Oh, here is the yogurt sauce. And pop that on the side, like that. All right? and then garnish the whole thing with just a few crannies over the top. Look good? This is real Americana. I'd serve this hot or put it in the fridge and keep it cold, whatever you like. It's just two ways of putting milk together in desserts, which frankly I rather like the idea of. I like the idea of, rather than sweet and starchy things, I like the idea of having, you know, good food. And we're going to compare this with a classic Indian pudding, which is made with molasses and butter and all kinds of stuff and whipped cream on the outside, and the classic custard, which is a good egg custard, which is just delicious, of course. So, right, we've done that. Let me show you what I've done here. I have put the Indian pudding, this is IP, and this one over here is the custard, all right? And we'll compare that. The big thing to compare on this one is, first of all, it's half the calories on the Indian pudding, and look at the amount of fat. That's down from 13 to 4, which means it's a 17% of calories from fat dessert, which is good stuff. Now, as for the custard, 233 is down 190. Well, it's a little bit of a change, but look. That's down to only 2 grams of fat there, which is good stuff. 32% it was, down to 11, which makes that good. And all the way around, you know, only 9 grams of cholesterol and 3 in the other one. I mean, you know, come on. It's worth eating. I've been looking forward to this. This is really a piece of Americana. Hot or cold? Oh, you've got to try them. That is delicious. This is just beginning to set up here. Oh, boy, it beats that stuff down in the third aisle on the right. Try it with lots of the things that you enjoy for the people you love. Well, now, would you call this lifestyle or life standard? I know. I mean, let me just score that out and write the word standard in here. I don't know whether you're like me in the way that the language is used, but when you talk about a standard of living, do you say, well, I've got a good standard of living because I've got a washing machine and a fridge and 2 cars and things like that, the kids go to school? Certainly that's one way of measuring a standard, but there are other standards as well. There's sort of standards which say, you know, if I do this and go outside this parameter here, outside this framework around my life, then I could get hurt. I mean, I could get fat, or I could diseased, or all number of sort of things. Well, to illustrate this, I was on a trip. You know, I've got a piece of orange zest in here. Good. I was on a trip on a big aeroplane to London the other day. I like to say that because it makes me sound so international. And lo and behold, it was business class, and they served this socking great piece of chocolate cake. And I said to the air hostess, "Oh, thank you, dear, but I don't really need," you know, I was putting on my best English accent because I was going to London, "don't really need the chocolate cake." She said, "Well, I'll come and pick it up later." And she didn't. And so it sat there in front of me, and I sort of looked at it, and I had a lot of resolve, you know, and when I had actually confronted it and said no. But then I had just this little bit at the end, just because I was intrigued. I mean, you know, I'd want to see how the chef had made it. And it lay there on my tongue. I have 52,000 taste buds, so do you, by the way. And they all reared up like a crowd, you know, like a home run. And then I had a little bit more of a nibble, and a bit more. And when eventually she came to get what was left of it, she went, ooh, like this, you know, and I thought, oh dear. Well, net result was the next day on a restaurant menu, I saw chocolate cake. And, you know, because I had done that, when normally I wouldn't, because I'd stepped over the line, I ordered a piece of chocolate, I ate the whole thing. And you know, I worked it out afterwards, and I thought to myself, that was a 70-gram of fat chocolate cake. Now, normally, this framework, which I have around my life, says, Graham, 60 grams of fat a day. I was 10 grams over what it was, without eating anything else at all. Not a whisper, not a bit of butter on me marmalade, you know, and toast or anything. So I've got a rule, which is if I'm going to 60 grams a day, I'm never going to go more than an extra 60 grams. I build a ditch around myself. Never go more than that. That's a good idea, you know. You might like to think about that. Never do more than your requisite amount of grams per day. Great. Well, I tell you what, that is a delicious dish. And cold or hot, whatever it is, and that custard, bang on. Right? Until next time, God bless. See you soon.